Okay, so another area I would like to see shaded down is the side of this chair. And what I thought might be helpful here is we'll first define the shape, obviously. So we'll draw in our perimeter shape of this chair, or at least the perimeter of the side. So just something like that, a weighted line to the back. And with this, I just want to shade over the top of this. And I kind of want to do two things here. I want these angled or diagonal lines to go across here. If anything, I'd want them to weight to the back, so I have a little bit more weight to the back like this. But the other thing I'm thinking about, I want to crosshatch these, and I'm thinking I want to have a shadow that goes like this. So the reason why I'm illustrating it this way is I want to show you that you very much want to go into it with a thought process. So we could do something like that, almost looks like a sun kind of ray effect, but just an additional shadow there. We could also just add in the shading with the diagonal lines, and then we could cross hatch from the bottom up. And that actually makes more sense since generally light is coming from the top. So let's go ahead and do that. It'll just should read a bit better. So again, let me go ahead and merge this down. So that's our cross hatching. Or better yet, I'm going to do it this way. I'm going to take just this area that I drew in here, Command X, Command V. So I'm basically separating it from the cross-hatching layer. I'm going to hit Command E, merge it together. So now I can draw on this cross-hatch layer without hitting the edges there. So just something that makes it a little bit more forgiving. Also, I want to zoom back to where, to me, I get straighter lines if I worry about passing through these edges, right? I basically don't worry about it, I just do it. Because if I try to stop, I'm going to get little line gaps here and there. I'm going to get a little bit more inconsistency with my line creation because I'm a little bit more worried about it. And I want the weight to the back of it. So I'm going to turn this in a way where it's easier for me to do that. I'm going to press into this area. And again, I just want to do it in a way where it's comfortable. So I want to get the brush to just the right size to where I'm barely putting any pressure to get this line. And I might even practice it a couple times. So I don't think that's bad, but it's just not as good as I want it. So I can't delete that because of the other information. Let me hold Command Z a few times. Go back, try that one more time. Just keep in mind, you're just only going to get better the more of these lines you create. So just to say, just to explain the mechanics of what I'm doing, my hand is resting on the Cintiq that I'm using, and I'm drawing through this with just wrist motion. So I'm pivoting off the back of my hand, and I'm just drawing through this quickly with a sweeping pass of my wrist pivoting, not any arm movement or anything like that. So just to hopefully make that be a little bit more understood for you as to the type of motion I'm creating. And if I want to go back and try to clean up little inconsistencies like that line right there, it's not a big deal. Sometimes leaving little things like that kind of add flavor to it. So the other thing is I want to add some cross-hatching now from the bottom up. And I also want these lines to read a little bit differently. So this is just personal preference. I could obviously just go right through this with these types of lines, a little bit more weight. And you see it's pretty quick, pretty easy to do. Other times I will try to purposely make lines noticeably different from the ones they're cross-hatched against. It really depends on, I guess, what your goal is for style. So what I'm doing is I'm starting off a little bit thinner, and then I'm going to purposely make these a bit thicker to the one side. So you see it provides a little bit different of a look. Not much, but I think it's always important to experiment with the way that you create these so that you don't fall into creating the same type of lines over and over again and ultimately end up with something more boring. So again, it just basically provides a gradient, a bit of shading right there. Also, we can, I'll tell you the truth, I actually like the other ones. Let me go back. So sometimes you are going to change something and then say, well, you know what? I was wrong and I like the first attempt better. So let's try that again. So I'm just going to fly through here. And, you know, you can also think about the fact that generally when you make quicker lines like we're doing right here, you're generally going to get more confident lines. Something about the speed just kind of helps that. Yeah, I like that better. I think the side of a chair, you want it to read pretty light and airy. You don't want a whole lot of intense rendering. Now, the other thing is I feel like the top could still be a little bit lighter. So we could play around with cross-hatching with some negative lines. Rotate that. Yep, and I like that look better. So again, it's just trying these different things and seeing what works. So now where else? We've got some lines on the back of the back wall here. So here again, the beauty of having this floating layer is I can just draw right through these. I don't have to worry about hitting these edges. I can just focus on the bottom line that I might be getting. So something like that. Now, another kind of neat thing you can do for something like this, if you want something that's cleaner, there's a couple ways really. Let me show you the first where we go back. Command Y to go forward. Go with our translucent brush, erase this back, and we can obviously erase like that and a line. So basically it gives us that nice arc, that kind of perfect shading or shadow. You see how it looks more like an even gradient, you know, almost like a spotlight on that back wall. So that's one way to do it. Another way is if you're really going into that area and you know that's the effect you're after, you can generate a selection first. So let's just say that we want to put, you know, a bit of an arc off this back wall. So we'll move the selection into place like this. And then we'll hit Command Shift I, which obviously inverts the selection. And you could really go through here and, you know, make the selection just perfect. Since we have the layer, it's not a big deal. So I'm just going to draw through here now. Again, I want to shoot past the edges so that I can just focus on clean lines and not worry about the stop and go. So I'm just kind of racing through there in a sense. A little bit of randomness to the lines isn't a big deal, but I want a little bit more of a clean look. Command D to deselect. Go back to the translucent brush and just erase it back from anything in the foreground or any of the overlaps that I don't want to see. So pretty easy to get this effect. You can even use this opportunity to do little highlights on the raised areas of whatever, the metal or whatever. You could do a little highlight off to the one side of these wires. So this is a little bit more impressive if it's a pretty significant area in the design. I don't think that this area you're going to see that a whole lot, but I just want you to be aware of that kind of thought process. And again, if you like this effect of erasing back, which I do, you can just kind of put these negative lines in there. I always think those are kind of fun to create, and they're just so simple to do. So that's really it, like as far as cross-hatching goes. I mean, we're going to texturize some other things like, you know, these aren't really cross-hatch lines, but they're great for texture. So I'm just going to kind of throw these in there. I almost picture these as like a little bit of a glare against the metal. Let me go back and try that one more time. So not really tapering the lines, just kind of going with this curve that I've implemented with the sketch. Same thing over here. And again, those are almost more like texture than anything. And that's, let me see, is there any more? A little bit of that kind of line work here. So these are nice because they just basically show the separation from the floor to the, the computer panel there. Same thing over here. Great for just kind of showing that divide and that separation. And you can obviously go through this and kind of add little bits of shading everywhere. So if you want that kind of very detailed look of where you show a lot of the plane changes, you might go to the side of the computer screens and add some shading like this here and there. The main thing I think is that you practice doing a variety of lines. So, you do some that are like this, and some that they start tighter together and then they fade off. But you want to use them consistently, I think. But it's important that you try a variety of different lines so that when you go to render out these scenes, everything doesn't just kind of blend together. You get a nice variety in tone, and you're essentially not a one-trick pony. You can do all sorts of neat things with your line work. So let's head over to the next lesson. Let's go ahead and texturize these panels up top, get some of the other additional ink lines in place, and continue to refine the scene, and then we'll start inking our characters. So with that, let's move on.